"Fuck Hipper, my new patient committed treason and I'm completely on his side." Beginning in 1951, the United States government conducted nuclear tests in various locations throughout the American Southwest, primarily, although not exclusively, at the Nevada test site in Nye County, Nevada. It is difficult to overstate the devastation wrought by these actions. Bombs were detonated in the air, on the ground, and underground. The fallout contaminated everything from aquifers to nearby cities. Even today, the contamination in some of these sites far exceed the contamination at Chernobyl. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the Nevada test site and other locations have been the subject of numerous protests over the years. These protests have been reasonably well publicized. What has not been publicized is a long and successful campaign of eco-terrorism perpetuated by an unknown entity that occurred between 1951 and 1962. The culprit targeting facilities, carriers, waste storage sites, and the weapons themselves. Based on surveillance, he accomplished his goals in a matter of minutes and occasionally in a matter of seconds. Despite extensive efforts, no one ever learned how the culprit managed to come into such close proximity to his targets undetected. No one ever even learned how the culprit managed to inflict such a staggering amount of damage at all, let alone in such a minuscule span of time. The destruction perpetuated by the culprit was so extensive that some experts estimate it set the government's nuclear efforts back by 15 years. As a result, the perpetrator was convicted of treason in absentia. This campaign continued for 9 years, until a detonation in 1962. Shortly after the blast, an extremely large and severely injured animal dragged itself within sight of a security detail and proceeded to attack them. Due to the extent of its injuries, the creature was briefly incapacitated. According to classified documentation relating to the incident, military personnel could not figure out what exactly they were looking at. One man guessed that it was a giant mutant coyote. Another surmised that it was a new species of cougar ravaged by the bomb. Most who saw it, however, assumed it was an undiscovered and possibly deformed species of desert ape, suffering from thermal flash burns. All described the creature as melted or melting. When one of the soldiers approached, the creature regained consciousness and proceeded to attack again. 2 personnel died on site. An additional service member died of radiation sickness approximately 3 days later. The remaining members of the security force experienced radiation sickness, but did not pass away. Authorities attempted to put down the animal, but soon discovered that no matter what was done to it, it would not die. Approximately 3 hours into this campaign of inadvertent torture, the creature began to speak. Despite its clearly immense suffering and substantial rage, everyone assembled agreed that it spoke articulately, even eloquently, provided it say specifically, and it was speaking in its own language. Under the circumstances, the Agency of Helping Hands was alerted. Upon arrival, staff took one look at the entity on its table and immediately recognized it for what it was: a critically and irreparably damaged elemental. Among the most enigmatic entities known to AHH-NASSQ are these so-called elementals, guardians who oversee and whose well-being is intrinsically tied to geographic areas. Elemental number 2, known as Eli, was the elemental of a vast swath of desert in the American Southwest. As noted above, the geographic area to which Eli belongs contains areas used extensively for nuclear testing by the United States government. Eli suffered direct catastrophic injury from these tests. The impact on Eli cannot be overstated. He is so deformed and damaged as a result of his injuries that no one at the agency has any idea what he is supposed to look like. At this time, Eli resembles a blistered, hairless animal, approximately 8 feet long. He is able to walk upright and on all fours. His skin is raw and weeping, despite all treatment administered by the agency. Blisters form, pop, and reform multiple times per day. One of his eye sockets is empty and constantly suppurating, while the other contains a blind white eye sunken approximately halfway into his skull. His mouth has been split all the way to his temple on the left side. Eli complains of severe pain on a frequent basis. To date, the agency is incapable of sedating Eli or otherwise managing his pain. His presence of mind, alertness, and orientation are precarious. At times, Eli seems to believe he is still back in the desert, only to remember the truth, at which point he panics. In the past, his panic attacks have resulted in deadly consequences for personnel. Eli has been recommended for compassionate termination due to his immense suffering. However, elementals cannot be destroyed by any known means at this time. While the agency briefly considered returning him to his geographic territory with the assistance of Inmate 11, Ward 1, the Swan King, Eli's injuries and suffering unfortunately preclude even the most modest quality of life. Additionally, he still emits dangerous levels of radiation sufficient to further contaminate any land he ventures upon, and would almost certainly inflict deadly injuries upon any living creature he encounters. For these reasons, he must remain in agency custody in his specialized containment chamber until a method of termination is discovered. Interview subject: Eli of the Desert. Classification string: non-cooperative / indestructible / Gaian / constant / low / diamond. Interviewers: Rachel B. and Christoph W. Interview date: 12/22/2024. I have been in the desert for as long as it has been a desert, no more and no less. I watched the desert grow from a tiny sandy outcropping in the ancient sea into the majesty it became. I grew with it, even as I helped it grow. To grow, one must eat. To be eaten, one must die. In this way, death engenders life. Death is the foundation of life, and life is the foundation of death. Nothing stays alive forever, and nothing stays dead forever. You understood this once. When did you forget? And when did you decide to make things stay dead forever? Do you know? That is the only question I have for you. When did you decide to keep death from living again? I have no concern for mankind. I did not hurt you, but I did not help you. I did not ever embroil myself in your conflicts. It is not in my nature or my desire to do, not then and not now. That does not mean I am not a god. I am a god, yes, but not a god for you. I am a god for the hares and the hawks and the coyotes, the songbirds and the burrowing squirrels, the beetles and the scorpions, the spiders and the mice, the hawks and the owls, the cacti and the trees, the hardy wildflowers and the deer. Nothing serves them but me. Everything on this earth must serve and be served. You have no idea how well served you are. You have gods to intercede for you, gods to reroute the paths of life and death. You once had many, now you have few, such as my brother the Earth Singer and our cousin the Freak. They are poor compared to what you once had, but that is your fault. I maintain harmony and balance because harmony and balance are what the things I serve require of me. This is why I cannot serve you. Because your conflicts, your lives, your very selves do not align with harmony. Nothing corrupts balance like you, except perhaps the things that serve you and love you. That is why I do not love you or serve you. I never have. But I did not hate you either. I regarded you as you regard the ground you walk upon. Something that simply is. Nothing more and nothing less. No concern of mine. And until you become part of my land. You people like to fight. You like to make war. There have always been battles and skirmishes and murders and massacres on my lands. I took no part, but I think that was wrong of me. The people who lived on my land were still people. They still fought. They still upset the balance, but they strived. They did not succeed, but they strived to maintain balance all the same. More importantly, they revered the hares and the hawks, the coyotes and the deer, the scorpions and the spiders, the songbirds and the mice. They did not love them as I did, but they loved them as much as they could. Most importantly, they respected them all in a way the people who came after did not, and to this day do not. All again, I did not understand how fortunate I was to have them until they were gone. The invaders came and fought against my maintainers. My maintainers were murdered and left by my trees to rot. I ignored them. I always ignore your corpses. But my land did not ignore the corpses. The earth noticed them, and the trees remembered what I forgot, that these corpses were people who respected hares and hawks and wildflowers and coyotes. People who strived to maintain balance. The trees respected them in turn. They folded the corpses into themselves, drawing them up through their roots as though they were soil and water. That is how the corpses became one with my trees. And that was how I came to know mankind, because my trees decided to love you and draw you up deep into their own hearts. I wish they had not done this, because it taught me to think much more of man than you actually are. I did not know that then. I only knew that my trees had welcomed you into harmony. I only knew that I now served you. I communed with the corpse trees, just as I communed with the soil trees and the earth, the hares and the hawks and the coyotes. The corpse trees whispered songs of their ancestors and their children, their human dreams and fears, the bitterness of humanity lost and the sweetness of harmony gained, of their hopes and their loves and their contentment and their grief. They sang to me of these things under darkening skies and vast multitude of stars, as nightbirds hunted and coyotes chorused to the rising moon. And I tended them, I cared for them, and because I was their God, the only God they had, I came to love them as I love everything I served. As I learned to love them, they learned that I served them. Once they understood this, they prayed to me. Their prayers took the form of wind roaring through their leaves, beautiful song of water bubbling through their wooden veins. They were very beautiful, pure in ways only trees can be, passionate in ways only you can be. The coyotes have always been my favorite, but the corpse trees came very close. When settlers came and cut them down, stopping their beautiful hearts, desecrating their perfect bodies to build wagons and homesteads, I heard their prayers. I heard their screams. But I was too far away to answer. By the time I arrived, they were gone. I heard the dying whispers of their last angry prayers rising from the ragged stumps. They wanted vengeance. Trees do not desire vengeance. But those trees were not only trees. I am not a god of man, but I am a god of trees, even of trees who were once men. I answered the prayers of my corpse trees. Dinepi. After answering, I made sure the remains of their mutilators would never be welcomed into my trees or my wild flowers, or even into the mouths of my scavengers. That was long ago, too long ago to matter anymore to anyone but me. But I tell you this so that you understand that my corpse trees are why I learned to tolerate human beings. I still did not intercede in your conflicts, for I am not your God, but I allowed your conflicts to play out on my lands. I made sure that those who died in your conflicts were taken up into my worshippers through roots and teeth. As long as those who survived worked to achieve balance with the land, I let them stay, I let them grow. Growth and decay are the essence of harmony. So I let harmony run its course and I retreated from their settlements. I was not watchful. Instead, I was consumed and fulfilled in equal measure by my hares and hawks, my wild singing coyotes and wise little owls, my scorpions and my ground squirrels. I was so intent on serving them that I forgot to protect them. I did not notice as you changed and grew and overgrew. I did not notice that you overran. I did not notice how you upset the balance until it was already destroyed. I remember your first bomb. I remember the screaming of my hawks and my hares and the madness song of my clever, beautiful coyotes. Navorich ardalagit, isitam ubinil abtal kloksen. I remember all of them screaming to me for help, screaming to me to make it stop, screaming for me, their only protector, their only God, to save them. I could not save them, I could not protect them, I could not comfort them in their agony. I too was destroyed, so I could not even answer them. They died alone, believing themselves abandoned by their only protector. I cannot bring myself to think of this. I cannot. It is the only thought that hurts even more than what is left of my body. How could you do that to them? That is my only question for you. How could you do that? He told me, I thought I was dead. I wanted to be dead. from shame and from sheer, indescribably agony. But I cannot die. It is impossible for me. I must grow stronger, stronger and compassionate. Even as my flesh was melting, even as my eyes were blind, even as my bones rotted and reformed inside my body, I could not die. I crawled blindly across my lands, seeking those whom I serve and weeping when I could not find them. I sensed the obliteration, felt the devastation with every part of my burnt and melting body. In my rotting marrow, I sensed the worst thing of all, the destruction of balance. The cycle of life and death cut to pieces. Everything that died, all of my trees and hawks and hares and spiders and coyotes, destroyed so thoroughly that they cannot live again. The desolation of death that can no longer cycle back into life. I crawled until I found life. It was agony, more than agony. But every second of pain was penance, payment, however poor, for my failure to serve what I was meant to serve. Far from the blast zone, as dusk fell and stars glimmered to life, I found coyotes. They were alive, but wouldn't be for long. They were dying, bleeding, melting. Blisters and burns ravaged their flesh. When they sensed me, they yipped and chorused to me and to the moon. Even in their last moments, they sang. I gathered them all to me. It was a struggle, for I was in unimaginable pain, and so were they. It made me weep to hurt them. It made me scream when their singed fur and burnt flesh sloughed off in my hands. They still sang to me, even through their pain. I held them as they died. I made sure that they, at least, knew I had not abandoned them. I went on. I thought that the first bomb was the end, but it was only the beginning. I did everything I could to stop them, to stop you. What else could I do? What is the point of a God who cannot protect his worshippers? I could not protect them anymore, but I could pay penance, and I could serve them and you could serve them well by destroying your bombs, your supplies, your equipment, maybe medicines or other things. John thinks to himself, if I have to save them now, I agree to save them later, and I will do so. I command you, Locust, to do it. I'm too old for this. I did. It was not enough. Nothing I did was enough. Nothing I will ever do will ever be enough. Put it, I cannot describe my pain to you. Not the pain in my body, the agony that explodes each and every second in each and every one of my cells like the bombs with which you killed my land. Not the horror that came on the day I realized the pain did not lessen, that it will never lessen, that for as long as the desert exists, even dead, the pain will only grow. Hihira, kal kayam rabarai. Not the pain of my worshippers, not the pain of my failure, which is the worst of all. Pain incites madness. I was mad. I am mad. I will always be mad now. Condor de place triumph. But I would not spare myself this pain, even if I could, even if you could, because I deserve it. Ivan. Pain is not only the consequence of my failure. It is my appreciation of the beautiful who. Pain is not only the consequence of my failure, it is my guide for the real world. How I remember hares and the hawks and the coyotes, the songbirds and the burrowing squirrels, the beetles and the scorpions, the hardy wild flowers and the deer. Pain is the only sacrifice I can give to those I failed to save. If I could, I would inflict this pain on you as well. You deserve this pain because you have forgotten harmony. Perhaps you never understood it at all. You do not value what you do not understand. Looking at you, I see there is much you do not understand. Suppressing a sigh, Dr. Ransom reluctantly plots out his talisman. What you do understand, what you have always understood, is destruction. You destroyed everything that was mine, not even from a desire to destroy me, only from a desire to destroy each other. Instead of each other, you destroyed the hares, so fleet and strong. You destroyed the eagles, soaring above all. You destroyed the owls and the mice, the songbirds and the trees and the petrified seabeds. You destroyed the scorpions, hunting in the night. You destroyed my coyotes and their packs, singing to the moon and stars. You destroyed me. You did not even want to destroy me. That is what I do not understand. You did not think of me or my hares or my birds or scorpions or my coyotes with their sweet primal song. You only wanted to destroy each other. Why then did you not simply continue to destroy yourselves? That is my only question for you. Why did you not destroy each other and leave everything else to live? You don't even stop with each other. You go so far as to destroy what serves you. Do you understand? You destroy what you need without understanding that what you need does not need you. In the end, this is kind of a twofer, but in a supremely unsatisfying way. As soon as we got done with Eli, like the second we were done decontaminating, while I still had images of coyotes and moons dancing through my heart, while I was still crying for God's sake, the commander ordered Christoph and I to go talk to the Harlequin yet again. What am I supposed to talk to him about? I asked. Ask him about Ms. Pauly. He led us to a secure interview room. Sure enough, the Harlequin was looming across the table, staring blankly at the door. For some reason, he was in shackles, which, if you know anything about the Harlequin, is useless to the point of absurdity. When we walked in, he shuddered. Just so you know, this is not how I wanted to spend my afternoon. And you think this is how we want to spend ours? Christoph flopped down into a chair across from him. The Harlequin frowned distastefully. Why are you even here? Because she is not allowed to do interviews without someone she is afraid of, and I am the only one she is afraid of. That frown transformed into an extraordinarily wide smile. Really? Yeah. Where is she afraid of you? Ask her. He immediately rounded on me, wide-eyed and bright and looking like he was on the verge of mania. Don't worry, I respect your privacy, so we'll talk later, he said in a stage whisper where he can't eavesdrop. His voice returned to a much higher volume than was necessary. Now, what are we talking about today, sweetheart? He wiped a tear away, smiling. I'm sorry, I'm just so proud of you. It's so exciting to see you working. So very proud. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm interfering with your work now. Let's get started. Interview subject, the Harlequin. Classification strain, uncooperative/indestructible/Olympic/Protean/critical/egregor. Interviewers, Rachel B. and Christoph W. Interview date 12/22/2024. I have no dealings with Miss Pauly at this time. None whatsoever. Don't misunderstand me, she is a very fascinating woman, but she's also, how do I put this? Oh yes, distinctly unentertaining. Besides, she is, shall we say, taken. I wouldn't dream of taking a belonging from its owner. That's stealing. I'm no thief. Unlike you. I've no doubt that she's up to something. Who isn't? But whatever she's up to right now has nothing to do with me. Not because I wouldn't enjoy getting up to things with her, I know myself too well to say otherwise, just because she's under lock and key. Locks and keys aren't especially difficult for me to handle, but there does come a point when effort, however minimal, simply isn't worth the result. This time, Ms. Pauly is not worth the effort. You know who is worth my effort? Let's see if you can drag it out of me. Dragons can drag, can't they? Can't they? The lioness, yes. You know, your hyena is actually worth the most effort of all. He's the one you call a ghoul, and the only other inmate that you stole from another continent. It's nice to have such a commonality with another inmate. And that hyena is so useful in ways you can't begin to understand. Even better, he's made of absolutely everything I love, but he's a project I don't have patience for just yet. I don't like that you dragged that out of me. I don't like that at all. Come here. No, I will not let go of you until I am done. Hold still. Tell your company man to sit like the good dog he isn't, or I will turn you into something neither of you can imagine right before I tear him in half, and turn each of his halves into something even I can't imagine. Male did not sound pleased. Shall I count to 3, Mr. Wolf? 1, 2... The behavior and healthcare research, as shown in demonstrated safe trials, may put it. Now, since you've made me talk, it's only polite to let me finish talking. There are 4 things you need to understand. Eurasian classification is by courtesy only. Live in your pantheon by courtesy only. Your pantheon stands by my courtesy only. I'm not feeling particularly courteous anymore. Any other questions? Then I'll let go, just like you asked. There. See? Oh no, I left bruises. I'm sorry. Believe me, it was entirely unintentional. I don't know my own strength, especially when someone upsets me. I ask that you take care to remember that in future. As the reaction slowly passed, he began, I also ask you to remember that nothing upsets me quite as much as when my children refuse to get along. Before you go, I would like to apologize for losing my temper. Also, I feel it's necessary to clarify that I would only turn Mr. Wolf into something neither of you can imagine. I would never do such a thing to my own daughter, however angry she makes me. Him, though, well, let's put it this way. Where I'm from, it's always open season on wolves. Get out of myself. And tell them to bring me a TV. I'm bored. As you all know, I am monstrously intolerable when I'm bored.